Hi everyone, it's Jan with What You Make It, and for the past month Tim Holtz has been hosting a challenge over on his blog to get people to do projects with the Tattered Floral Die. You know me, I love a great challenge, and I've been wanting to play with some of the new Dylusions sprays and the new distress paint. So this was just a perfect project for me to do that on, and I ended up altering this birdhouse. I decided to create a little spring decor, even though outside is not so springy right now. But I love how these turned out. They're very bright, very festive. I love the intensity of the Dylusions spray, and I really like all that I was able to do with the distress paint as well. The background here is some of the tissue, the music printed tissue, and I did a wash of a couple of distress paints over it, and I just love the effect. One of the other things that I did was I used some tin or aluminum foil tape to make the roof, and I took a foil sheet and I went ahead and die cut it with the scallop edge. And if you're going to die cut and do embossing, do the cutting first. But then I took all the strips and just ran them through this embossing folder with the rivets on it, and I just think it had a really cool effect on it. So then I found a little bird, and you know what she told me is that she's really excited because she thinks the garden around her house is the most festive of anybody in the neighborhood. So she's kind of excited about that. Another thing that I did was I created this wreath by cutting a wreath out with grunge paper, and again just added those distress paints over it, and it looks really great. Now the technique that I did is I used the distress paint to be a resist, and I'm going to do a tutorial for you here so that you can see the process of creating these flowers, but I wanted to give you one last look at what I ended up doing with them when they were done. So let's get started. I started by cutting several sets of the flower out of watercolor paper. You know that when I am planning to do a wet technique that I really love doing, using watercolor paper for that, I like the crispness of the white, particularly when we're getting ready to use really bright colors as well. So watercolor paper, it's light, but it holds up to the various techniques that we're going to do. I took a script stamp and I used archival ink because again it will not blend with the water, so once it's dry it's color fast, and I just stamped text over them. Really great way to just add some visual texture to something. And then so that there was even a little bit more visual variety going on there, I took a flourish stamp and stamped some of the others as well. And I like how the combination of the two. So I really had three different varieties: just script, just the flourish, and then I did some that had text and the flourish. You know. Okay, so to create the resist, I took the picket fence distress paint and I added it to my rubber stamp. I just turned it over on its back, and this is not going to hurt it at all. I wash it off with water and it does, it comes right off, and I think I'll even show you that here in a minute. But I just started by placing all of them down, face down, and you can't really see it, but trust me, it's there. It's all going to become clear here in a minute. But you add it on, you want to put it on pretty thick, and you'll notice I start pouncing it, and that gets it to go a little bit thicker, and I found I got better results when I had the paint a little thicker on it. And I also figured out that if you'd put a piece of paper down, you wouldn't be having it all over your hands. You can see it washed up really well just with water. So once I've done all of the stamping with the distress paint, you want to go ahead and make sure that it is really dry. So I use my heat tool. While it is wet, it's blendable. It reacts just like all of the other distress products with water. But if you heat set it, it becomes permanent. And so you can do this technique by heating it. So you can see here, once I add the spray, you really can see that stamping that we did. Very, very, very cool. I'm going to use this often, I'm sure. I just picked colors that were kind of in a color family together and sprayed them. And then one of the things that I've seen Diane Reevely do is she uses her paper towel to just roll over it. You can see what a great resist you get. And I just created some of them in different color families. I started with pinks, did some blues. I'm telling you, these Dylusion sprays are so vivid and intense. Very, very, very fun. They're going to be great go-to projects, and I'll be sharing some more with you about them in some other projects. But I just like how crisp they are and how well they blend together and the intensity of them. They're very fun. And I like how the flowers turned out. I just kind of created a rainbow of various petals. And then, of course, I couldn't just leave it at that. I wanted to add a little more visual texture, and so I'm going to put it through the embossing folder. Because it is watercolor paper, it's thicker. If you will moisten it either with some water, or I used my Biscotti Perfect Pearl to add just a little shimmer. And you get such a great deep etched. So we've got all kinds of texture going on here. So much fun. So much fun. And I just put them all through with the embossing folder, and then went on to the next one. So to form the petals, while they're still a little damp, I went and I took a complimentary distress ink and just inked the edges, and then and the back. And while they're damp, you can begin to fold them, curl them, kind of cup them, just beginning to put them in the form that you want them in. If you set them aside and let them dry, they'll be pretty stiff and hold their shape. Did the same thing with the pinks and the yellows and some of the reds. Here's the little daisy that's in there. And I found that if you just kind of wiggle those leaves back and forth, it broke the fibers down and would allow you to get a more natural curl going on there. So much fun. I made extras of these. Trust me, I made a whole lot more than I am using. Adding just a little bit of Rub and Buff white onto these so that to distress them just a little bit more. But here you see they're all put together and so fun. Now let me tell you about the roof that I did. I took some of the foil tape sheets and I cut them into strips. And if you're going to do both die cutting and embossing, do your die cutting first. And then once you've cut them all, you can put them through your embossing folder. If you do it the other way around, it flattens out the embossing. But you can see I just moved them along that line there. And it's that rivet embossing folder, perfect for this. Really love how it kind of gave that my birdhouse a little tin roof. It was, again, kind of festive. I really love how this project turned out, and I hope you will try doing this resist technique for yourself. And I appreciate you stopping by. Hope you will have some time for creative play and come back and visit me again soon.